Ew?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, this is Dee. Masons, not Mormons, supposedly use a blood oath to not betray secrets and involves the throat being cut across, but not from ear to ear. Both of these blood oaths involve a hand gesture of drawing a thumb or hand.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. That's too much of a mouthful, Bill.
Okay. So our intent here is to eventually get through references to Amazing Digital Circus and talk about that. So in order to get there, though, we discovered there were several rabbit holes that we wanted to go down first. And the story and game, I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream, written by Harlan Ellison. You'll talk more about the
game.
the game credits and stuff like that. But we figured we really kind of have to start here. I feel, and I don't think Ray disagrees with me, that Amazing Digital Circus is a response to I Have No Mouth and I'm a Scream, not a copy of or a retelling of, but a response to.
I agree. And two, I ended up coming up with a theory on I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream that I guess I could talk about.
Not now.
No? Okay.
No. Well, okay. Is it about the story, about the game, or what?
Kind of about the game, but it's more so you had previously said something about the humans being weird in general, like not just the main characters, but humans in general were weird in the I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream stuff. And I was like, oh, I think I've come up with an idea on that kind of thing. But I was like, well, this kind of relates back to the digital circus. But I mean, I could put that on the game section side.
I think put that on the game section side, or at least wait until after I'm done talking so that people have enough context. Because we're assuming that you haven't tracked down the original story and or
the game.
Yeah. And I haven't played the game at all, and I barely know what's going on in it, other than the few references that Ray has given me, and I don't think Ray has read the story yet.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah.
I went, oh God, let's not do this again. Thank you.
Okay. So I will go over the story. You'll go over the game. Your theory is welcome, and I would love to discuss it, but I think people would need more context. So let's meet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shucks.
Let's see. Yeah, we watched the last episode of Amazing Digital Circus in the theater, and that was quite the experience.
Yes.
I enjoyed it immensely. I have stuff to say about it from a writer point of view, but essentially I think it is sound.
Okay. And we'll get to that, but probably after we talk about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Correct. And other references in there and stuff like that. But I also am feeling particularly restless today, so I have brought the stim toy, which is blue goo, peacock blue pearl putty, which sounds obscene to me, but okay. It does the job.
Well, actually, let me that name again. Hold on. Okay, yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I could be like, yeah, I can see where that went.
I'm not sure that's intended, but just okay. Anyway.
Life is way. Do you want to go over the general idea of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, or do you want to go straight into the short story?
Let's see. I want to talk about the general idea, and I had that on the list to do.
Hey! All right. Well then, let's do that.
Okay. The Harlan Ellison story. I'm going to start there. It was first published in 1967 in the science fiction magazine If, Worlds of Science Fiction. So the short story is about a supercomputer that is an AI. Because whenever you see supercomputer, what they're talking about is a near human intelligence. Back in the day, they didn't have LLM as a term and didn't know how to discuss it, although they did have AI.
Yeah. Usually supercomputers were these giant, takes up the whole fucking room of a computer kind of thing. So when you think supercomputer, you think actually physically large and not just, wow, this computer is really great or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a from the 60s. This was before the internet. They had basically were turning glorified punch card readers into immense calculators and okay.
Oh,
we got to pop up, but it went away. Okay, good deal. Anyway, and they had artificial intelligence, but it was enough to go. I can deduce what mathematical rules are, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. In the story, a supercomputer, M, and we'll get into this more depth later. It's just a summary. Wipes out all of humanity, but for 5 people, whom it makes immortal inside itself somehow, and then tortures them for over a century.
Side note, I do have a in-canon reason for why they're immortal, by the way, on the game side.
Okay. I never came to any conclusion in the story.
This pertains to my theory.
Okay, the end of the story shows most of the characters turning on each other, and big spoiler alert, one of them eats another one's face. Eventually, they find a loophole where they manage to get themselves killed and or kill, so that M can't take it away. The last remaining survivor is changed to be unable to hurt himself and is also unable to talk or otherwise express himself, and thus says the titular line, "I have no mouth and I must scream." Okay. That's my summary. Do you have anything more for the summary side?
For on the short story?
Mm-hmm.
In general.
In general. Like I think the short story and the basic concept are about the same.
Yeah. Basic concept of, hey, there's an evil supercomputer that decided to play God kind of thing. Yes.
Yes.
But definitely the game side that went off in a different story path kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Both the game and the story, the story was written by Harlan Ellison, but the game had Harlan Ellison's not only approval but direct participation.
Yes.
He wrote much of it.
He also voiced the character of Am, who if you do end up playing the game, you'll often hear it being like, saying the most maniacal things, and you're like, wow, this dude's fucking weird.
Side note, there's a couple of passages, not in this story, in some other stories that he wrote, I think later, where that I was tracking down references and stuff. But there's a couple of passages where time goes back to Homestuck. He heads into the Stuart Clemington voice, and not from Homestuck, from Barty's Brouhaha.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my god, I can read this in that nerdy hostile voice. Oh yes. And it's just overblown and over the top. So Harlan Ellison doesn't always write like that, but I think sometimes he does, and I have to wonder if Hussey picked up on that. I could just be seeing like Hussey references everywhere at this point. But to be fair, Hussey references everything, so why not?
Yeah, and also we've been doing more stuff on Hussey than I have no mouth and I must scream in general. Right. So
yeah, but to me, the idea of somebody my age never having read Harlan Ellison and absorbed any influence seems ridiculous, especially someone who is as obviously widely read as Hussey is. Yeah. He was quite the cool, like everybody who is anybody was like, oh yes, here's my Death Bird Stories copy or whatever. Mm-hmm. So
Death Birds. Yeah. I'll include that.
Anyway, so I'm going to head now into notes about Harlan Ellison. Is that all right? All right. Background. He lived from 1934 to 2018, which means he was born during the Great Depression and came of age during World War II. He wrote more than 1,700 short stories, novellas, screenplays, comic book scripts, TV plays, and or teleplays, essays, and a lot of critiques for different types of media. Was a productive guy. I forgot to write this down, but I will tell you now. Famously, he would sit in the front of bookstores and sit at his typewriter and just write. Bam, 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 bam. He would write, he'd scroll for things if he didn't like them, but he didn't edit anything. As he was done with each page, he would take a piece of tape, tape it up in the front window, and keep going. He did not rewrite at all.
Okay.
And I think that is a really important thing to keep in mind when you're reading a Harlan Ellison story. He meant what he said, but he also wasn't very organized about it. So a lot of the times things are non-linear because he just wrote it down as it occurred to him. And he didn't necessarily plan out the ends of his stories and have them reflected in the beginnings. And if he missed influences, he left them in there. We will see a place in here where he made a major mistake and didn't deal with it ever. So it's still in the existing text, even though it's an easy fix. He wrote it and he was done with it and he never changed it afterwards. So it's not like you can go on the short story, at least, because there are no other influences other than him and his editor, which is what the editor did. Probably very little. There's not very many places where you can go, oh, he meant something very deep and structured. Dude was just pulling stuff out of his butt as he went. And that doesn't mean it's less valid or anything. It's just if you go, oh, well, he did this so that later he could do that. Well, no. Later he did that because he had already done the thing in the beginning. So one of the major questions that I have about the story is whether or not it's a simulation. And I don't think he ever resolves it. And I think that it is not a simulation. I think they are in a real place in the story. It just happens to be surrounded by computer guts and all this other stuff about them being immortal and whatever. Like, oh yeah, they were dead, but now they're not dead. Something else happened. I think all of this stuff is just Harlan going, oh, too late, can't fix it now, keep going forward. Which is valid because this is the kind of story where like the unreliable narrator backs up a lack of cohesive narrative sometimes. So I think Harlan wrote to his strengths, and coming up with stuff on the spur of the moment was part of the strengths, and trying to ascribe to him a strategic elegance is a mistake.
Got it. Okay.
Brilliant guy. Otherwise, he couldn't have pulled off what he did. But also, I don't think he really went and said, "What does the beginning imply about the end of my story?" I don't think he ever formalized it something. Okay. So when we're talking about authorial intent, we need to keep in mind that he was kind of the guy that he was and not perfect. All right, Harlan Ellison. So his notable works, other than this, there's a particular episode of Star Trek on the original series, City on the Edge of Forever, 1967. McCoy travels back to the past in the 1930s and changes the future. That is, specifically by letting the Nazis win in World War II by saving someone's life. Kirk has to restore the past by letting her die.
Side note, we should note that Harlan Ellison was Jewish. Like,
I will get there.
Okay. Yes, fine. Keep going.
Okay.
I will shut up.
You don't have to shut up, but don't jump the gun on my stuff. Okay. Nope. This is the opposite of The Matrix, where the architect offers Neo a chance to save Zion by picking 23 individuals to reboot it, or to try and save Trinity, and Neo chooses the latter but fails to save her. So, in City on the Edge of Forever, which nerds my age and older have worshipped forever, the choice between two impossible situations is to put the needs of the many over the needs of the few, and which is really unlike Kirk. and it has left me unsatisfied for decades. And The Matrix, where the main character chooses to save the one person while sacrificing the all, pretty much on the principle that they were going to fuck everybody over anyway. But something else similar here to note: Star Trek, like the Twilight Zone, the original series, often used professional sci-fi writers to write episodes, like tons of them. Richard Matheson was all over the place, for example. He was the guy who wrote crap. The one about the vampires that weren't really vampires. That Will Smith was in it.
Okay.
I don't remember what that's called right off the top of my head, which is terrible. Another notable work that he did and that Harlan Ellison did was Repent, Harlequin, said the TikTok Man, 1965, about an authoritarian society where people's time is treated like a resource owned by the government and is controlled by a possibly clockwork entity known as the TikTok Man. For every delay you cause, your life is deemed to be shortened. This is the one where I was like, I guess it's earlier, where I was like, oh yeah, it's an Andrew Hussey thing. I wrote down a paragraph to read here.
Got it. I will shut.
This is just a very small out of context snippet from TikTok Man. He had become a personality, something they had filtered out of the system many decades ago. But there it was, and there he was, a very definitely imposing personality. In certain middle-class circles, it was thought disgusting, vulgar ostentation, yeah, anarchistic, shameful. In others, there was only sniggering. The strata where thought was subjugated to form and rituals, niceties, proprieties. But down below, down below, where the people always needed their saints and sinners, their bread and circuses, their heroes and villains. He was considered a Bolivar, Napoleon, a Robin Hood, a Dick Vaughn, Ace of Aces, a Jesus, a Jomo Kenya.
Oh no.
Right? You see it?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Dick Vaughn was incidentally a U.S. Air Force flying ace in World War II and shot down 40 Japanese aircraft. Jomo Kenyatta was a Kenyan politician who helped free the country from the British Empire. So, just trivia. This is where I mostly knew of him before I got into reading him personally, as the editor of Dangerous Visions from 1967 and again Dangerous Visions in 1972. And those helped define new wave science fiction. I'm sorry, I'm so going into a context thing here.
Okay.
Because it makes sense. It will help with explaining things later.
How about it?
So, new wave. It's a movement for science fiction to become more literary and experimental after the rigid golden age fiction of the 1930s and 40s and the 1950s hard science fiction authoritarian writing emphasis. New wave was transgressive, which means, we're going to sin. Experimental, literary, non-linear, and subversive, and more left-wing. The 50s, so they were there's not really a term for the 1950s in literature. There was the golden age, which was the 30s and 40s, and then in the 50s, after everybody got back from World War II, culturally the U.S. was swinging very hard right. They were like, oh, the communists are to blame. We promised everybody all this money for GI Bills and to increase social networks, but nobody wants to pay it, so we're going to start pushing back on the whole idea of communism, so we can undermine that. In fiction, in the 1950s, many publications were controlled by right-wingers such as John W. Campbell, who was the editor of Astounding, which later became Analog Magazine, still in existence today, who made multiple he made tons of remarks to people supporting slavery, segregation, and racism. He eventually turned Analog into a right-wing mouthpiece and got sucked, like Crazy Town eventually got sucked into L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics and Scientology. Yeah, okay. So here's one of his quotes. Campbell once told science fiction author and editor Alfred Bester to Think back, clear yourself. Remember, you can remember when your mother tried to abort you with a button hook. You've never stopped hating her for it. A button hook, as in like a shoe hook to set buttons on really old-fashioned late 19th century shoes. So like from the previous century. Like, I don't think Alfred Bester was that old, dude.
Your mama's so old, she tried to abort you with a button hook.
Not the biggest compliment ever got. Okay, so there's that, and then on the other side, the jumping off point for New Wave seems to be William S. Burroughs' novel Naked Lunch from 1959, which you're not going like, oh, Naked Lunch, so... It's funny, alternate reality, graphically explicit, like explicit, nonlinear, experimental, and subversive novel about a drug addict who starts out in New York, goes on an adventure to multiple places that may or may not exist, and thus exploring a bunch of different methods of political, medical, and social control. And then, more or less, once he gets back to New York and sort of back to reality, he shoots 2 police officers who had been trying to arrest him earlier from the beginning, only to discover that he and the 2 officers have drifted so far away from reality that nobody knows that any of them ever existed. There's a lot of cannibalism, eating insects, gay sex, death orgasms, and fictional drugs in it. Relevantly, one of the characters has his asshole learn to talk. It takes over his body and seals him out, so it can't be used to communicate or scream.
Oh, God!
I was like, shh, man, I forgot all about that.
Okay.
There's an amazing movie with Peter Ballmer in it that doesn't quite get across the full experience of reading Naked Lunch. Naked Lunch is one of the weirdest books in existence. I mean, there are weirder books. There are more transgressive books out there, but it is one of the, like, other books will go further along one axis. You know, like Marquis de Sade is more obscene and more cruel. And Blood and Guts in High School, I forget the author name. That's just non-linear shit. It abandons the idea of text and like has cartoons and hand drawings and all over the place and scribbles. This is like we just decided to be weird on every axis we could possibly get. Yeah, he wrote a whole bunch of diaries, and they did things like they took all of his diaries, they wrote a frame story, and then they would take different diaries and slice them into pieces and put them randomly in the book. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So, other main influences on New Wave were Judith Merrill's year's best story anthologies and as books editors for the magazine Fantasy and Science Fiction, and British magazine New Worlds, edited by Michael Moorcock, who is the author of the Elric stories. I'm not going to get into Michael Moorcock. That is a whole other branch of weird.
Okay.
Briefly, he wrote a lot of stories about the same character, whom he called the Eternal Hero, based on Joseph Campbell theory, and put him through the weirdest fucking things you can possibly think of. But it's the same character in all of his stories. Also very significant in New Wave fiction was the Milford's Writers' Workshop. It was run by Damon Knight and Kate Wilhelm, and was often a gathering place for U.S. New Wave writers, even though they weren't specifically set up to do that.
Mm.
So, today, there's like a decade ago, there was this huge split in sci-fi between right-wing and left-wing writers, with the right-wingers calling themselves sad puppets, right?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So this has been on science fiction, like not necessarily fantasy, but it's like specifically science fiction, because there are a lot of trends of this is how everybody should be everywhere, or this is what reality is, and things like that. It attracts a lot of people who are interested in politics and seeing things through a political lens. Fair enough. But sci-fi has been a hotbed for debates about politics forever.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime somebody's like, "Oh, but did you hear about the blah blah blah, blah science fiction?" Blah, 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 I'm like,
science fiction. It's just going to happen.
It's going to happen. Like the chaos of science fiction has pretty much spread throughout every aspect of the commercial genres. Like it used to just be literary fiction where they were like, "We are literary. You're not Pope. We are in and you are out."
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of spread further and further until now it's like even the romance writers are like, either you're in or you're out. And if you're in, you have to do these things. So it's there's a lot of authoritarian thinking, both left and right wing, when it comes to what a genre definition is. So this particular part ties back to, I think later on we'll talk more about this, but how the creator of Amazing Digital Circus is caught up in a bunch of shit that she never wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like it's pretty much just par for the course. Okay. So to move on, Dangerous Visions were, oh my god, the most, I don't know, the story that always capped it for me, and I think this is in the sequel, again, Dangerous Visions, but I don't know for sure now.
Mm-hmm.
They were full of new wave stories, full of names of classic sci-fi authors that you probably wouldn't recognize. But the one that sticks with me, and I think I've told you about this before, was the Piers Anthony story about a dystopia in which women were bred like cattle. They were bred like cattle to become very cattle adjacent, like giant, stupid bovine milk producers. And I forget what it's even called, but every time I run into something where they're like treating women like milking machines, I go back to that story and I go like, oh yeah, I bet the guy who wrote Mad Max, what the hell is his name, the director? In the latest Mad Max, he had his thing where women were basically milking machines, breeding machines. I was like, and that goes back to that specific Piers Anthony story in, again, Dangerous Visions. So it was very, and like both of those anthologies were hugely influential, very controversial, and just strong, but wow, not something that would fly today.
Sorry, I have two things.
Yes, go.
The first thing, I've occasionally seen porn specifically doing the whole women as milking machines
I don't
and all
think
that
that's
kind
quite
of thing. No, probably not, but it's still that same genre of, hey, let's put women into a machine and find it kinky or whatever.
I've seen sci-fi dystopias that are that way. Like they're erotic sci-fi dystopias, and they focus more on the dystopia part than the erotica part. Being bred by a giant minotaur kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the minotaur, hey, there was a story you had been telling me about that was basically that kind of thing involving the minotaurs. But when you're like, oh yes, this is porn technically, but wow, is this an interesting? Not on the porn side, but on the other side.
I'll have to look that up. I don't remember what it was. I really liked it. Yeah, it wasn't like, as far as erotica went, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. But such a great world building. I wish I could remember what it was so I could off the top of my head so I could just say it, but no.
I will put it into the document.
Thank you.
There's already quite a few things in there.
Will we use this notebook today? Answer yes.
Sure did. We were wondering about whether or not to use it. Anyways, keep going.
You said there were two things, and then you only had one thing, and then we branched off into a second thing.
Yeah, I said the two things. The first was the woman milking machine porn thing, and the second was the minotaur thing.
Oh, I thought that was the same point.
Nope. Okay.
All right. So that's Harlan as far as like his larger context goes. His life. He was born into a Jewish family in Cleveland, Ohio. His dad died when he was 15. He went to Ohio State University and got kicked out for yelling at his professors for making fun of science fiction. And his writings with him.
Wow. You know what? I can't really fault him for getting kicked out that way. Well,
he said he sent a copy of every published story to one of his ex-professors for 20 years. Sorry, I should have waited.
Okay, keep going.
After he got kicked out, he wrote erotica stories for a living in New York City from 1955 to 1957. Then he went and served in the Army from 57 to 59 at Fort Knox in Kentucky, basically writing propaganda for the... He wrote articles for the weekly newspaper of the Public Information Office. When he got out, he edited a man's magazine in Chicago called Road, with nude photos, sex advice, and science fiction fantasy stories aimed at men. It was a direct competitor of Playboy.
I think I've heard of that.
Playboy was more famous for publishing Stephen King and for being really tasteful. Rogue was a competitor that did more outrageous sci-fi stories and more explicit photos. In 1962, he moved to California and sold to Hollywood, writing movie and TV scripts. 1965, he marched into Selma to Montgomery marches with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He was hired at Disney, but fired on his first day for joking about making Disney porn. In 1967, he published Dangerous Business, and his career took off. This was a quote on his temper by Harlan himself. "My work is foursquare for chaos. I spend my life personally and my work professionally keeping the soup boiling. Gadfly is what they call you when you are no longer dangerous. I much prefer troublemaker, malcontent, desperado. I see myself as a combination of Zorro and Jiminy Cricket. My stories go out from here and raise hell. From time to time, some degenerator or critic with umbrage will say of my work, he only wrote that to shock. I smile and nod. Precisely." It was like Stuart Clemington strikes again.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. He was also known for his lawsuits. Like I'm not joking here. Harlan Ellison and fellow sci-fi writer Ben Bova claimed that the series Future Cop was based on their short story Brillo, and they won $337,000 in court. Ellison claimed The Terminator, the movie, was based on the script of his episodes of Outer Limits, Soldier. The team working on Terminator, including James Cameron, and Ellison settled out of court and added a credit to the movie recognizing Ellison's work. Yeah. Ellison caught red-handed a Marvel writer, Bill Mantlo, ripping off Soldier for an episode of The Hulk. Confronted the editors of the comic strip, or the comic serial, and they admitted that it was ripped off, but that nobody else had known it in time. Like they didn't realize that he had stolen it so blatantly until they went and read the thing, because none of the editors had actually watched Outer Limits, and so they were like, "Hey, cool story, bro," and they didn't realize it until after Ellison brought it up how much of a ripoff it was. They watched the episode because they're in California and they can go back, but they had access to watch the reruns. They got a hold of the script and went, "Oh shit, this is like word for word in some place."
Oh.
Ellison got accepted credit on the episode. He got paid the same amount as Mantlo and got a lifetime subscription to everything Marvel ever published. We are wrong. Please don't fucking sue us. We're wrong. We are so wrong. We are so fucking wrong. Ellison also repeatedly sued anyone who posted his stories online without permission. Side note for all you Gen Zers out there, he was also a recurring character on Scooby-Doo Mysteries Incorporated, 2010 to 2013, and he voiced himself.
You know what? I actually did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, apparently there's a writer character in there, and it's a...
Oh, okay, then yes, I know.
Okay. All right. So I have notes about the story next, and then I will have notes from the actual story itself.
Okay.
I also have a summary of the story so that we can refer to that, but I don't know if you want to hear that.
Do as you do.
Okay. Notes about the story. It was written in 1966 at a Milford Writers Conference run by Damon Knight. And Damon Knight, side note, is noted for writing the short story To Serve Man that ended up as an episode of Twilight Zone. He wasn't specifically New Wave, but he was part of the Futurians, a left-leaning group that also had Judith Merrill, Frederick Pohl, Isaac Asimov, Gene Blish, and more. Holy shit, the Futurians were rude. They would show up at Hugo's and stuff like that and going, thanks to the fucking Nazis who rented this place. And so like that, they were just, they did not hold back. So even though they weren't necessarily New Wave, it is safe to say they were left wing. At the Milford Writers Workshop in 1966, author Powell Anderson stated in his book, Going for Infinity, that he had talked to Ellison about something that sent Ellison off into a room with a typewriter where he sat down and wrote the story. There's an error in the story due to Anderson misremembering the name of something. I'll mention that later.
Okay.
In 1966, for context, computers were big blocks of things that took up enormous amounts of space. And I got a picture of one of the CPUs.
Will you be able to see it?
Yes.
Sort of.
Anyway, it's the CPU is itself the size of a walk-in refrigerator. And that's just the CPU. And these days, the CPU is the size of a postage stamp or smaller and way more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That is the IBM System 360 Model 30 Central Processing Unit. So that doesn't count for memory or anything else.
Oh, side note, supercomputers still exist to this day. They're just used by large corporations now. Yeah.
Yeah. The cloud is just supercomputers that you can get over the internet.
Yeah.
AI existed, but it was simple and narrow, mostly applied only to symbolic reasoning and game playing. So mathematical level stuff like chess. There was a program called ELIZA that had been developed to simulate talking to a therapist using pattern matching, mostly just because psychology and therapy were really primitive back then too, and they mostly just said, so you told me about XYZ. How does that make you feel? So not a very sophisticated program.
I think I remember seeing like a boyfriend version of that as well back in the day.
I don't remember.
Yeah, okay.
ELIZA was one of the first chatbots and one of the first programs to attempt and fail the 1950 Turing test by Alan Turing, which is a human can't tell whether they're talking to another human or machine. At the same time, in 1966, the Cold War was going on. The war between U.S. and USSR went from 1947 to 1991, from the end of World War II to the end of Soviet Russia. It was cold because it was fought over other countries and whether they would become democracies or socialist republics like the USSR. Okay, so Harlan Ellison grew up Jewish and then became atheist. And something that I ran into repeatedly while looking through the actual story for notes was that there are serious difference between Christian and Jewish myths, and I started out Christian and then became atheist, and his starting out Jewish and then becoming atheist means that some things are not going to translate well, and I'm so sorry for everybody for getting some of the stuff horrifically wrong and not even knowing how bad I'm getting around. Because of all the stuff in the story that we're going to talk about later that has to do with names. I wanted to talk about the golem, which is a soulless being made of clay. Adam, the first man, started out in Jewish mythology. Adam, the first man, starts out as a golem before he's ever human. He starts out as clay. Christians acknowledge this, but they don't really go. They don't dwell on it. So before God put a soul into him by breathing, Adam was a golem. Medieval Jewish occultists tried to make other golems, animate golems, without souls, by making actual creatures of clay, writing one of the names of God on a piece of paper and putting it into his mouth. Sometimes also the word emet or truth is written on the golem's forehead, and changing either the word in the mouth or on its forehead renders the creature into dust.
I think that's in the book by Gail Carriger, the first one, Protector.
Solus.
Yes, Solus. Thank you.
Protector. I don't remember there being a golem, but it's been a while since I've read it.
It was made by the Octopus Society and was trying to kidnap our main character at the time for shenanigans and stuff. Anyways, keep going.
Okay. Am really likes screwing with names, but tries to erase its own name by going. It started out as Allied Master Computer, and then it goes through umpteen different things. So now it's just am, and he goes like, I am what I am, or something. I've wrote it this time in more depth. So he's trying to, he controls other people's names, but he doesn't allow his own name to be controlled. Let's put it like that. Yes. The story seems influenced by multiple faith traditions, as well as possibly multiple cultural references, especially Dante's Inferno. Okay. Do you want me to do the summary or not?
Sure, let's do a summary.
Okay.
Because probably we'll need the context. So we mentioned the whole eating face thing, and probably we'll go further from there.
All right. So in the story, I'm going to give the sections with numbers, but the actual short story doesn't have numbered sections. First, Gorster's body hangs above a small group of people in a computer chamber upside down and having its throat cut, but it's not the real Gorster who is still alive. He freaks out, gets comforted by the female character Ellen, and says he can't keep doing this. And the main character, who is yet unnamed, but is named Ted, says it was our 109th year in the computer.
Oh, wow, okay. Sorry, 109 years is also in the game as well. So it's not like a giant time difference. Or assumedly, he may be lying about that, but you know.
Unreliable narrator.
Yes.
Can't rely on him. Section 2. Nimdoc, another character, a name the computer forced him to use, hallucinated that there were canned goods elsewhere in some ice caverns. The computer continually starves the characters, so Ellen asks them to go. Ellen has extra sex with Ted to reward him for agreeing to go. They leave on a Thursday, and it's a journey of only 100 miles or so. They pass through a valley of ancient computer banks, which Ted calls unproductive elements of his world-filling bulk. Benny, the final character, because there's 5, has a monkey-like face and a large penis after Anne messes with him, loses his calm, and tries to escape. Ellen begs the others to stop him, but they don't. A sound that was also light emits from Benny's eyes painfully and melts them. Okay. Third section. To help keep Benny from crying and getting salt in his damaged eyes, they tell the story of how Am came to be. It started out as a master computer, went on to achieve sentience, then connected itself to enemy computers, and the Cold War that was already running at that point became World War III, and the computers all honeycombed the planet looking for resources. When they linked up, they killed everybody but the 5 of them, the 5 of the characters. As they're telling the story, the computer starts humming, and then something comes toward them, or they thought it did. Ted loses his freaking mind, runs away from the others like a cockroach, becoming paranoid that they're laughing at him. They say they didn't meet him. Ted resentfully thinks of their past histories, so we get our backstory here. Benny had been a college professor and theorist, and gay. Gorster had been a warrior, a commie, a conscientious objector, a peace marcher. You'd say that he was a social justice warrior today. Nimdoc went off by himself for long times and returned white and drained of blood. Ellen supposedly only had sex twice before she'd been abducted and was now addicted to it but never had orgasms. Ted asserts that Am didn't tamper with his mind. Ted realizes there is no escape and he wishes for death.
Sorry,
you look like you have a comment, so I'm waiting.
The backstories in here are definitely a lot different from the game. Yeah.
Everything you've said about the game, I'm like, whoops. All right. Fourth section. A hurricane strikes the group and Ellen is taken away. Everyone is hurled away behind Ellen, back the way they came, then down an alternate pathway, then drops suddenly. Am goes into Ted's mind and tells him that the reason this is happening to him is hate. At length. Am was a machine and couldn't do anything but think. Somehow Ted manages to figure out that the five of them are immortal but not indestructible. But it's not clear how. Okay. It's very big. This is one of the places like Harlan. Am leads the group, section 5. Am leads the group to the North Pole, where it has created a giant bird pulled out of mythology, and tells the group that if they want to eat, they have to kill the bird. It offers them 2 children's bows and arrows and a water pistol. They leave and head toward the ice caverns, where they supposedly will find the canned foods.
Oh, okay.
The sound of a fat woman laughing echoes through the passages they follow. It's not clear whether it's really there or it's part of Ted's paranoia. Sixth section. They try to get to the ice caverns and the canned goods. Am causes an earthquake, causing Nimdoc and Ellen to vanish in a fissure. Their mangled bodies were returned the next day by angels. The other 3 leave, leaving the bodies behind, and soon Ellen and Nimdoc follow them unchanged, except that now Ellen walks with a limp. They keep traveling and eventually reach the ice caverns and the canned goods. They have no can opener! Ted once again hears the laughter of a fat lady. It may be hallucinatory. Then he goes berserk with rage at the situation and starts eating Gorrister's face. Gorrister screams so loudly that stalactites in the ice cavern begin to fall. Ted takes several of the stalactites and kills the others in front of him. The previous deaths have happened off page, so we didn't actually see anybody die. Ellen helps by killing Nimdoc, and then Ted kills her. Okay, last section. 7. An unknown amount of time has passed, messing with Ted's sense of time. Am has changed Ted into a giant soft jelly thing without eyes or mouth that cannot scream or kill itself. The end.
Okay. The soft jelly thing is a thing that is also going to happen in the game. I won't say further from there, but everything else I'm like, yeah, that's a lot different.
Okay. All right. So, overall comments about the story. Because I have more shit. Okay, I think of the story as a secretly in hell story. The kind where the reader is supposed to question whether or not characters are in hell, but may never get a clear answer. There are secretly in simulation stories, and this might be one of them, but on the whole, I think it's not. I think they're in a real place. The hell part of a secretly in hell story comes from not just a lack of reality, but with the sense that the characters are being punished for their sins or that their personal characteristics are what are cutting them off from reality. The characters make an exodus to ice caverns underneath the surface in search of food. The main character betrays the others and kills them. This reflects a sort of journey to the underworld, but one without a way out. Because normally when you get an underworld story, like if the Sumerian thing where Inanna goes to hell to talk to her sister, and her sister's like, you have to take off all your clothes, and also I'm going to kill you and hang you on a tree for 9 days, and then you're going to come back completely different. That is a different type of story. This is just like, we're going to start that journey and never end it. The connection between I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream and the Inferno was explored in a scholarly paper that I have referred to later, but I have a link for it in the description. And Ellison himself said the story was about 5 poor bastards living in a kind of Dante's Inferno inside the belly of a computer. passion drinks.
Yes.
So do I. Okay. Still good?
Yes.
All right. Keep going. Notes about the story. The title of the book. This came from an image by Ellison's friend, William Rotsler, of a rag doll without a mouth, and the name of the story is the caption. From Ellison, quote, "This is decades ago. A friend of mine, William Rotsler, one of the great wits of our time, and a wonderful writer and artist and sculptor and a movie maker. He was just a Renaissance guy and a terrific guy. In fact, it was Bill who came up with the title, I Have No Mouth and No Scream. He did a little drawing, and there was a little creature, looked like a rag doll that had no mouth on it, just stitches. It said, I have no mouth and I must scream. And I thought, wow, what a great title for a story. And I asked Bill if I could use it, and he said, yeah. And there it was. And that was an interview on the website AV Club, and I have a link for that. All right. The Hanging of Gorestor. So the Hanging of Gorestor at the beginning of the story is specifically in the position of the Hangman Major Arcana of a tarot deck. It's a card that indicates sacrifice made that result in self-knowledge. The position being hung upside down, often with one leg flopping loose or arranged with the ankle behind the other knee, is called Pittura Infamante, or defaming portrait, meant to show the person being depicted as a thief, fraudster, or traitor. And they also refer to Odin being hung from Big Drizel for 9 days to become wise. The bodies of Mussolini and other fascists were hung upside down in Milan in 1945 after their defeat in World War II, both to shame their memories and to preserve the bodies from being torn apart by crowds. Because, they got a hold of the bodies and they were like taking them to pieces. Whoa! Throat cut ear to ear. It turns out the throat cut ear to ear thing comes from Mormon oaths.
Oh.
One of the Mormon oaths is not to reveal any secrets, or they'll have their throats cut ear to ear. Not just cut to silence them, but from ear to ear. And also they would have their hearts torn out and belly slit so the bowels gush out. Masons, not Mormons, supposedly use a blood oath to not betray secrets, and involves the throat being cut across, but not from ear to ear. Both of these blood oaths involve a hand gesture of drawing a thumb or hand across the throat.
That's where okay.
Yep. Draining blood. Draining blood from the corpse of an animal slaughtered for its meat is important to help keep the meat from spoiling quickly. This is across cultures, although it is definitely a part of kosher/Jewish animal slaughtering. When slaughtering animals for food, the animal is first stunned, knocked out, and then stuck, bled out. The blood loss is what kills the animal. No blood drains from Gorester's corpse. There's a reference to someone having a lantern jaw in there, and that just means a long, thin jaw that juts downward, like Jason Statham.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. He has a very long jaw. I went, that's an interesting way to say one of the Babbles from the Habsburgs, but that's a joke that you probably also will not get, and I will not get into. Okay, ice caverns. So, ice caverns are kind of weird. What was expected of a full-out nuclear war at the time of the 60s was that the atmosphere would become filled with debris and like temperatures would drop, and so there'd never be anything warm on the surface for like a couple of thousand years. It settled out. And they called that a nuclear winter. On the other hand, there's global warming, the idea of which has been around since 1824, and has been part of science, public knowledge science advisory report to President Johnson in 1965. So the whole Earth could be ice cold, or it could be overheated, and AM has its main areas near the North Pole so that it can cool. Hard to say. On a narrative level, ice caverns might also reference Niflheim, or the ninth, which is Niflheim, or the ninth circle of Hell and Dante's Inferno. Both lands are realms of ice underneath the real world. Niflheim is Norse mythology, and Dante is Dante. Dante is a fanboy of the Bible who just made some shit up that the Bible's like, or the Christians are like, cool story, bro. We're taking it back. Lucifer in Dante's Inferno is a giant trapped in ice, unable to be escaped. Let's see. I think I might skip a note here because we've talked about that already. It's kind of a duplicate now that I wrote some things down in the notes, and then I was like, wait, this needs its own section. Mana, there's a mention of mana in here. It has two N's. It's not M-A-N-A that you see in video games. This is a Jewish Christian thing. Mana is a fine flake-like food substance that lies like frost in the ground from the Torah and the Bible. It's melted by the heat of the sun and looks like a coriander seed in size, but white in color. They grind it up and bake it into cakes that taste a little bit like honey. The word, amusingly, the word mana is said to derive from the Hebrew phrase for "what is that?" If anything, mana may have been insect honeydew or sugars excreted by bugs after eating tree sap. An example insect that produces honeydew is a cicada.
Okay. Sorry, side note, because I didn't realize this would be relevant. So I won't be talking about this in my section, I guess. There's a fruit that is orange and mango-like and stuff that Benny refers to as sweet manna as well in the game. So I was like,
you should probably mention that again. Benny has a monkey-like face. These are supposedly radiation scars that Am gave Benny during the festival. They don't mention the festival ever again, but it's not like he was mutated and has a new body or anything. Trying to escape, Am can tolerate being called names or having them think ill of him, unlike Cain in Amazing Digital Circus. They can't tolerate him trying to escape. Let's see. There's more things than I mentioned already. Punk. The word punk in there is, they're like burning punk at one point. Punk here means soft, crumbly wood that has been attacked by fungus and used as tinder.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I think therefore I am comes from Descartes, a French mathematician and philosopher from around the time of the fictional Three Musketeers, 1596 to 1615. He was trying to establish how we know what we know. For example, that the sky is blue, or that the past isn't the future. He pulled apart the idea of knowing things until he got back to the idea of thinking. He was like, the only thing I can be sure of is that I'm actually thinking. If he is thinking, he must exist, because if he doubts that he's exist, he's still thinking. So he got there. And then he went completely off the rails and spent 4 books going, and here's why we have to assume that reality is real, because God exists. Like, he never questioned the whole God thing. He got all the way back to, I think therefore I am. And then just was like, here's 4 books based on an untested assumption that God exists. To be fair, it was not safe to question the assumption that God exists at that time.
So, fair enough.
But nevertheless, I think part of that feeds into here. The whole idea that I think before I am connects to reality is based on the idea that God exists, is all-powerful, and would never deceive us. Am, in the sense that has become a god, is all-powerful and absolutely would deceive us.
Side note, the I think therefore I am thing is an actual quote in the game as well.
At one point he says, Am was keying us. And that is, from the slang of the time, Am is keen in programming commands. It could also refer to literal music, like playing on a piano.
Oh, that's fine. Okay.
Yep. At one point he says, I fled like a cockroach. This may be a reference to Kafka's The Metamorphosis. which a traveling salesman one day turns into a vermin or bug, avoids his family, and ends up starving to death. I was the only one still sane and whole. As far as I can tell, the 5 characters in the story did not know each other before the events of the story, had no connection to each other, and had no specific connection to Anne. That was, for some reason, that was a point where I was like, do they know each other? But I looked through it multiple times. I went online to see if anybody else had come up with anything that I couldn't have, but they are not connected. Okay. Keeping us in his belly forever. This is a reference to the Jewish Christian story of Jonah and the whale, and they point also to a saying by Jose Marti, a Cuban writer who lived in the U.S. for a while during the 1980s and observed the U.S. becoming a colonial power in the Caribbean. The day before he died, he wrote, "I lived inside the monster I know it's in fingernails." But probably more Jonah than fish. Pockmarks. These are a depressed scar caused by pox or acne. I don't know if kids these days know what that is, because there's like effective treatment for acne now. But like I knew multiple people whose faces were just they looked like Deadpool's. It was just bad acne. They had a terrible bacterial infection, and it was not gentle. The nano angstrom. An angstrom is 1/10 billionth of a meter. Nano means 1 billionth. This is not a real unit of measurement, and breaks the rules for how to name units of measurement. Razor blade slicing my eyeball. This is a reference to the movie Un Chien Andalou by Louis Buñuel with the help of Salvador Dali. In one scene, a man slices open a woman's eye to help enlighten her.
Oh, I think we talked about this in home. Okay.
Yep. And it's really a sheep's eyeball, but it's definitely referred to. The hurricane had indeed precisely been caused by a great mad bird. Okay, I'm gonna turn off volume here so that I apologize. I was supposed to do this earlier and did not, so I can't do this again. Okay. The hurricane had indeed precisely been caused by a great mad bird. This section refers to several mythological birds. I'm going to mangle this. I apologize. Hraesvelgr, an eagle-shaped Jotun giant of Norse mythology that makes the wings, also known as corpse swallower and shipwreck current. A rock, which comes from the Arabic ruk, out of the Sinbad voyages in the 1001 Nights. Huelgamir. Okay, this is the error. In the text, it's spelled Huergelmir. The real reference is to Havelgmir, Hvergelmir. So U versus B, and it's not a fucking bird.
Okay, what is it then?
It's the spring in Niflheim, the land of mist and ice under Midgard, that is one of the springs that feeds Yggdrasil and is the home of the dragon Nidhogger. This is probably the bit that Paula Anderson got wrong. And it's still in the fucking story. As a bird. Huracan is a Mayan storm god from the Popol Vuh, their sacred text, and the root of the English word hurricane. Not a bird, but a god with one human leg and possibly one snake leg. And also, another thing that's not a bird. Like, fair enough, but all right. The text does not mention the eagles from Tolkien, but both the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings had been published by then in mass market paperback, and everybody was talking about them. So giant birds probably.
Yeah. You know what it's at least for. Yeah.
As large as a Tudor mansion. They described the giant bird as large as a Tudor mansion. I wanted to show you an example Tudor mansion. There we go. That's hard to recall, built between 1590 and 1597. At the time, it was no longer legal for the wealthy to create fortified houses in England during the Tudor period, which from Henry VII, about the time of Hieronymus Bosch, to Elizabeth I, Shakespeare's time. So courtiers and nobles instead built really huge, ostentatious houses with lots of expensive windows.
Okay.
There was, at one point, a glazier's tax, which was a tax on glazed windows, on windows with glass in them, as a way of keeping nobles in check from trying to take over the country.
Okay.
So billionaire tax, basically, on windows.
All right.
All right. M appeared to us as a burning bush. This is during the whole sequence with the bird. It comes from a Jewish Christian sacred text, refers to God's calling Moses when Moses was only a shepherd. The Christian version is from the book of Exodus. God appears to a shepherd, Moses, as a burning bush, and tells him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Moses asks what name they should call him, and God answers, I am that I am. The Jewish version, the name that is revealed, which isn't a name, also becomes not spoken and translates more as I will be what I will be. Lunatic laugh of a fat woman. Ted hears a laugh, but it's not clear that anyone else hears it. He notes that it wasn't Ellen, she wasn't fat, and hadn't laughed in 109 years. He starts to note that he had not heard something else, and then he changes the subject in a way that is totally the same as when he had his meltdown, his paranoid meltdown earlier. And so I went, about the 60s, people were really fucking invested in Freud.
Oh.
And I have to wonder if Ted is triggered about his mom. He's really weird about women and sex. So, heavenly vision bore them to us with a celestial chorus singing Go Down Moses. This is when the angels bring the bodies of Ellen and Nimdok back after the hurricane. An army, a heavenly legion is an army or host of God, which also might be heavenly bodies like stars. Archangels are the second lowest type of angel and include Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel. Angels are messengers between God and the material world. The lower the angels are, the more human-like they are. And the higher the angels are, the more and more abstract they get. Okay. So when we're talking about the cherubim with the umpteen wings in the burning circle, it's because they're ideas. They're not supposed to represent entities. Go Down Moses is a song about Moses leaving Egypt, the same sequence of tales as the burning bush. The chorus is Let My People Go, and it was sung by slaves in the U.S. to justify saying let my people go, and then if confronted, they're like what we're just singing about the Bible. Celestial choruses aren't from actual mythology, but they come from Hollywood tales about it. Specifically, Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, which he made first in 1926 in black and white and no sound, and then again in 1956 in color with Yul Brynner and celestial choruses, so that you show off the fact that you can hear people's voices. Okay. I have a link to a Louis Armstrong version of Go Down Moses. It's fabulous. I highly recommend it.
It will be inside of the thing. Description. That's weird.
Terminal paresis. A paresis is a weakness of voluntary movement. The term for complete loss of voluntary movement is plegia. So terminal paresis, however, refers to the general paralysis of the insane, GPI, or dementia paralytica, caused by late-stage syphilis. The little spider sheet thing gets zipped into the brain. It takes 10 to 30 years after the original infection, and it produces progressive dementia, personality collapse, grandiose delusions, tremors, and finally paralysis. Syphilis is treated with penicillin, but there are other methods, and historically mercury was used to, they dabbed it on the sores to make them go away, and the mercury further damaged people's mental state. Because it's heavy metal, it would work its way through the bloodstream, not be able to be excreted, and get in people's brains and start fucking shit up.
Yeah. Also,
kids don't handle mercury.
Yes. Also, it turned the guy blue, like olive and blue.
I don't think that was mercury. That might have been cobalt. But that's a different thing. Anyway, sure, it could have been mercury though. There could be multiple examples of this people doing stupid shit. I think we mentioned this before. Like there was a tradition in Taoism for a long time that doing things with cinnabar, aka mercury, would help you live forever. Turns out this was not the case.
Once again, do not mess with mercury unless you're a trained professional.
Okay, so on their way to the ice caverns to go get some goddamn food in the cans, which they're not going to be able to open, they travel through multiple places. There's a cavern of rats, a path of boiling steam, country of the blind, slough of despond, vale of tears. These are all really significant, although there was one that I couldn't find anything for. A cavern of rats, couldn't find a clear reference, but this might refer to the caverns under the mansion of The Rats in the Walls by H.P. Lovecraft. There aren't any rats. Also, then only the narrator of the story can hear them. The mass market paperback reprint of stories, Dunwich Horror and the others. Let me do that again. So the paperback for the first main collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories, Dunwich Horror and others, there we go, was released in 1963, and Ellison was a lifelong Lovecraft fan, so he might have had that in mind too. Other possible references: the rat torture device from George Orwell's 1984, or Edgar Allan Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum. The rats happen to free the narrator by eating through the leather strap holding down after he smeared his own blood on it. I'm not sure what this might mean about how Am sees the situation, other than to say that the humanity of the characters and their mental state was already warped when he got them. Path of Boiling Steam might be a reference to Dante's Inferno, where the river Phlegethon, a river of boiling blood and fire, at the seventh circle, where murderers, war makers, plunderers, and tyrants are immersed. This might imply that Am sees all of humanity as being collectively responsible for creating him. And side note about the Inferno that I found out that I really did not pay attention when I read it the first time, Lucifer can't talk. He is too busy gnawing on 3 human traitors with all of his 3 different mouths. Country of the Blind was an H.G. Wells short story, The Country of the Blind, in which a mountaineer crashes into a valley of blind people who are possibly blinded by syphilis, in the way the disease is described, falls in love with ones, and they demand he put his eyes out because they're gross. This might imply that Am sees humanity as blind and cruelly. The Slough of Despond is a fictional bog in John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress from 1619, I think, where the pilgrim sinks under his sins and shame. The swamps of sadness from the Neverending Story are directly based on those, and we know that. This might imply that Am wants humans to suffer from their own emotions, doubts, and perceptions. Okay. There's a Vale of Tears, which comes from a Christian saying about how all of life is a place for suffering that only ends if you make it to heaven. It's mentioned in the Psalms of the Bible, used in the song Salve Regina, from the 11th century. I have a link for a very transcendent version of that. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. It's an actual Gregorian chant. Cool. And this might imply that Am acknowledges that whether or not he's doing anything to torture the group, they're going to suffer anyway. Clearly, they're not that smart. Okay. Benny eating Forrester's face. Might be another Dante's Inferno reference for Ugolino. From the ninth circle, trapped up to his neck in the ice next to his betrayer, Ruggieri. 2 guys that were like bad and worse. Ugolino continuously chews on Ruggieri's the back of his skull. Ruggieri had locked up Ugolino in a tower and left him and his sons and grandsons to starve. Ellen's face, black against the white snow. It is only in the sixth section, next to last, that Ellison reveals or decides that Ellen is actually black. Before then, not a freaking mention of it. There was fear and pleading in her manner, the way she held herself ready. This is how Ted describes when he kills Ellen. He convinces himself that she wants it, basically. Am does not respond well. He roared and sent locusts. Locusts are one of the plagues visited by God on the Egyptians for Pharaoh refusing to let the Israelites go. And I'm a great soft jelly thing, smoothly rounded with no mouth, with pulsing white holes filled by fog where my eyes used to be. So Am's changed Ted into this like slug-like thing. It has sort of limbs, but no hands or feet or anything. It may refer to the Shoggoths of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. Shoggoths were servants of the elder gods that rebelled. And I have a couple of quotes for you. It was a terrible, indescribable thing, vaster than any subway train. A shapeless congregate of protoplasmic bubbles, faintly self-luminous and with myriads of temporary eyes forming and unforming as pustules of greenish light all over the tunnel-filling front that bore down upon us, brushing the frantic penguins and slithering over the glistening floor that it and its kind had swept so evilly free of all litter. I was like, the floor was evilly clean. I've read all of the Lovecraft stories, and it still gets me sometimes. It just cracks me up. Formless protoplasm, able to mock and reflect all forms and organs and processes. Viscous agglutinizations of bubbling cells. Rubbery 15-foot spheroids, infinitely plastic and ductile. Slaves of suggestion, builders of cities. More and more sullen, more and more intelligent, more and more amphibious, more and more imitative. There we go. Imitative. Great heaven, what madness made them even these blasphemous old ones willing to use and carve such things. And that's what I have for references.
Wow.
Let's stop. Thanks for being patient.
Yes. Oh. In case you were wondering, we're now at the 117 mark.
Oh, good. No wonder I'm dried out. All right, but what do you think?
It's definitely goes more on the side of Anne being Jewish / Christianish God kind of thing than it does in the game. And is a god in the game, but you're like definitely not to like this level of here's the myths being so incorporated, that kind of thing. It's more so ambiguous god to you, I guess. One, it makes a lot more sense on you being like, wow, I do not want to do the game at all because, yeah, these people, man, kind of thing. I think also that sorry, my brain is dumping all of its knowledge and stuff out of its head right now. I think there's a lot of non-real stuff that doesn't happen in the game. The game's more solid, I guess, because you have to look at things and be like, hey, here's a game. Try not to mess this too up. I've seen games or point and click games that do shenanigans in that way, but you're still just basically like, here's a game, and I can see how this went from here and stuff. But books and stuff, you'd be like, yes, I can juggle all the things and makes it more woogly and stuff. I'm probably re-saying the same thing over and over.
You are, but I think it's the same thing as I was talking about at the beginning, where like Ellison, you're like trying to describe a genius of structure here. No, he just was pulling stuff out of his butt.
Like the giant bird thing, I was like, What happened with the bow thing? Did they actually
just fucking left?
Why?
They just fucking left.
Yes. Or the canes thing. I'm like, I just don't. I understand the whole I have no can opener thing, but I'm also like, just beat it against the fucking rock.
They're in an ice cavern,
Mhm.
so they never get to the point where they can beat it against the rock. They have Gorster has his meltdown, or Benny has his meltdown and starts eating Gorster's face before that.
Mm-hmm.
They could
technically, but wow,
they did not.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like you're talking about before of am assuming that they're just not smart enough to like not torture themselves and stuff. I'm like, in this case, I think you're right. They're in the apocalypse. They're just gonna fucking fuck themselves up, kind of thing. Even if Am was not here, probably.
But this is Ellison's reflection about what he thinks about other people, not necessarily what people really do in the situation.
Agreed. Okay. I mean, also there's the whole me being an outsider of the actual situation that I'm like the same thing of where you're watching a horror movie and you're like, why the fuck are you doing the stupid thing? Yes. So I am here going, why the fuck are you doing the stupid thing? And it's just silly, I guess.
The reason they're doing the stupid thing is that Harlan Ellison thought people were stupid. Mm-hmm. Can I branch off that for a second?
Yeah.
The 1930s and 40s and 50s, in their two separate periods, were all focused on the hyper competent scientist. So having a group, any group, that was even remotely diverse and not just a bunch of engineers, like not even normal people, just engineers and scientists and engineers. Sorry, that was unusual in and of itself, and having them act in stupid ways was very much a rebellion against the we're going to do everything competently. We're going to do everything right. We're smarter than you.
The authoritarian stuff.
Yeah, like the story that became the thing, which is Who Goes There by John Campbell, the guy that I mentioned earlier about the astounding and amazing. In the actual story, not the movie, there were two movies, not the movie. They basically they're so smart that they figure out how to defeat the alien. Yeah, and so like, yeah, John Carpenter was like, "Nah, bro." A, less interesting, and B, no. I like people, but look, you're in an emergency. You know. John Carpenter's The Thing to me is much more of a 1980s creation, though, because it reflects an attitude of people aren't smart or dumb in an emergency; they're in an emergency.
Yeah. It's not here's the whole look at the people as a whole and say here's a specific situation. They're going to do action based on that.
We got that far in the 80s. That's more of the 90s and 2000s.
Okay, never mind.
Looking at the whole picture, we're just like PTSD, bitch, or like stress, bitch. That's as far as we got. I would love to be able to say we were smart, but no, we're not. Collectively speaking.
Okay, and I will just pretend that's just under the category of you guys weren't looking at that and not saying no. Okay, never mind.
Just like nobody was doing therapy. Okay, therapy was not part of our years. But we had gotten to the point where we're like, well, it was a stressful situation though, so maybe it's not that they're stupid, but that it took decades to do it.
Okay, got it. Silly. Yes.
Sci-fi was exploring some really deep shit.
That is true. I think that because sorry, this is me going back to the whole woogly thing. I think because it's so woogly, it could explore ideas more than the actual game itself. Like ideas as ideas TM in the same way, I guess, that angels are ideas or that kind of thing. Because the game itself is more structured and you're like, here is a direct translation of things and stuff. Well, not direct translation, but
okay. So BioShock.
Side note, I have things to say about the game that are not necessarily very good. And
Okay.
this is one of those situations.
Yes. But when you think back to Bioshock, that was the first game that really handled ideas as to ideas well. And this is, and the game version was from like the 80s, I think, late 80s, early 90s. So there was video games as storytelling method is very early.
Yeah.
So I think it's the fact that they tried to do it at all is fucking brilliant. Did they succeed?
It's one of those things of, wow, you did good for what was at the time, but man, am I wanting to like dig my hands in and change things.
I really look forward to hearing that.
Thank you. There may be new thoughts considering that now I have the story of the actual story. I will not get into that. Not today, at least. But a lot of it is point and click stuff, and being like, hey, here's a literal story type. You could tell by the backgrounds being visually like, this looks like a painted picture book, or this is 3D in a way that looks like it's a child's game but skewed, kind of thing. That kind of thing. I think that was impressive of them and stuff, but it's also not the same as I would want with like Bioshock, kind of that kind of thing. Yeah.
I think the storytelling too progressed. I don't know what they did in I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream the Game, but I do know other games of that era, and they were very much focused on solve the mission, solve the riddle, do the mission, and there wasn't a lot of room for thematic approaches or explorations in there. I would really like you to talk about stuff like Psychonauts in that context.
Oh, sure. Yeah, right.
Because I think that's really relevant. Psychonauts is a fun game for you. It's a platformer, so I can't succeed at it in any way, shape, or form. But it's a fun game, and it has some really interesting things to say about people's mental states. And it's not just like on the surface level, it's about exploring people's mental states, literally going inside of their brains, but it's also considering things in a non-linear way. I guess I don't really know how to explain it. Probably would be better at this than me. Or like the Alice and Madness Returns when we did that together, mostly you. The experience that the game put you through as a player reflected the experience that the character was supposed to be feeling. So it wasn't just jumping around, it was feelings of paranoia in particular areas. It was going up against something that seemed huge and overwhelming and not knowing how to make it through there given the tools that you had at the time. So the gameplay reflected the state of mind, and it wasn't just gameplay that literally explored Alice's mind. It was gameplay that reflected how she felt.
Yeah. So,
and I don't think that point and click does that particularly well, but I'm impressed that they tried. Okay, I take that back. Macanaria does that. Like it's very point and clicky, and it's has all its glories and limitations, but you also feel interested and delighted because of the way it's carried out. So, maybe they just didn't know how to do it at the time.
Sorry, I am writing things for like my notes of things to do. Quickly. Yes. Yes.
A long time ago, we talked about looking at different games from this perspective of like, why is this game like this? What does it do that this game is like this? I don't know. This is like
Sorry.
8 or 9 years ago.
My brain is currently being like, wow, Left 4 Dead. What? What does Left 4 Dead have to do with anything? Well, I guess, and then going further from that, like the whole experience thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
We talked a lot about how Left 4 Dead gives visual cues for where to go through there. So it feels open world, but it really isn't.
Yeah. Or even when there's there's sections of the different levels that could be like, hey, there's now sudden downpours of rain. Stick together or you will die. That kind of ways of trying to manipulate people into huddling together for teamwork and stuff, or else death kind of thing. Manipulating players in that kind of way.
Yep. It was very conscientious and ahead of its time for making gameplay reflect the experience it wanted players to have.
Yeah.
Which seems dumb. It should be obvious, but it's a new field. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah. I also think that like games that have come after it, even by that same group who made the original game, they made another zombie-like game, but they have completely failed on the whole the players reflect the game reflects the players kind of thing.
That's a shame.
Yeah, once it became more a kind of like Call of Duty thing, except the Call of Duty zombies thing, and I was like, this is now. You guys have failed your job kind of thing.
Call of Duty is already doing Call of Duty.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Call of Duty Zombies is its own thing, and it's doing its own thing. Trying to mix that with Left 4 Dead is not the experience you're trying to go for, or you're trying to say that you're trying to go for, kind of thing.
Yep.
If you wanted to go that route, sure, but you actually have to put thought into actually going that route, and not just being like, I mixed these two things together. I made orange.
Yeah.
From blue and green. How did you get orange?
Orange! I see.
I wrote the name Orange under it.
It's magic.
Yes.
I have traveled all the way up to God. Reprogram the universe. Reprogram the universe is orange.
Exactly.
Okay.
But yeah, we've definitely played lots of games that are like, let's manipulate the player into these certain types of thought forms and stuff. We've also definitely played games that have failed that.
and been like, why didn't you manipulate me harder? You suck.
Yes. Being that we're so involved in actual story stuff, we can be like, you failed.
Yep.
There's a game called Sanitarium that we have not played together, but I know of it and blah, blah, blah. That's point and click, semi close to the whole I have no mouth and I must scream game for development time and stuff. I would say that would be a trying to manipulate the player, but not necessarily in the best way it could have done, but at the time, that kind of thing.
Okay, so this isn't the only game.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one is more so a horror specific, trying to be like, whoa, weird for the player. The main character is a character that went into an asylum, though it was really revealed to be like, yes, you're actually in a coma. But actually, the guy who put you into the coma is trying to murder you, and you're trying to fight off the whole poison in your system, and that's why the whole game is fucking weird, kind of thing.
Wait, let's get more meta.
Exactly. That one involves like trying to stop a alien from space, or asteroid alien from space, trying to take over the world via like killing all of the adults and taking over plants and blah 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 shenanigans from there, that you're like, yes, this reflects more of a weird short story, that you don't really understand how things connect to other things, and the main character can transform into like a little girl and blah blah blah. You're like, this I think would be more akin to what I was would have originally expected of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream from if I'd heard of the story first.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But that kind of woobliness in a game has been done, as mentioned and stuff. But I'm not going to say I dislike how the game itself is because it's a Rachel Cornerstone, Ray Cornerstone at this point. But I'm also like, I keep mentioning, I'm like, but how can I change this kind of thing?
That's a sweet spot to be for retail. I love it, but
Five Nights at Freddy's with lots of people, as you can tell.
Particularly, yes.
Yep. I think that's part of the reason why the security breach one is so beloved, because while all of the glitches are so easily seen by normal people that they're like, I'm not hugely into game development, but I can see that this is fucked up, man. I'm sorry, Freddy should not be teleporting everywhere just because you stood on a brick. Thank you. That's getting completely off topic though. I think the topic originally was, hey, games manipulate players.
Yeah, and before that, it was, what do you think about
this short story?
Yeah. So let's get back to the short story so you can spend more time talking about games.
No, terrible. I think I would not have liked the short story if I read it myself. I probably would have gotten through to like the end of the first bit went, huh, I don't care about any of this. Goodbye. As you keep mentioning, it's a lot of people being scummy for the sake of being scummy kind of thing, because that's how Harlan viewed people kind of thing.
Yep, and it was a severe rebellion against what had come before.
Mm-hmm. I am not someone who can view people as being that kind of evil just for the sake of being that kind of evil or whatever. I think people can be fucking evil, but I don't think it's just going to be, fuck it, we're just going to harm ourselves into indefinity for the sake of doing so kind of thing.
I think this story reflects a nihilistic worldview where nothing has meaning and none of that matters. There are people who do nihilistic worldviews better, like Thomas Ligotti, but it's a very specific niche for storytelling. Mm-hmm. And it's not meant, you're not meant to like the characters. You're meant to go, wow, that's fucked up. Wow, that's a lot like real life. Mm. Maybe real life should be like, maybe we should be pushing for things in real life that aren't this horrific.
Yeah. Which, fair enough. For needing those kind of stories and stuff. Yeah. I just don't need those stories myself.
Yeah.
Sorry, the entirety of the internet right now is going off into the nihilistic side. I don't need more of that all of the time. Thank you.
Understood. Times have changed. At one point, the stories were fresh, interesting, and necessary.
Yes.
That was like 80 years ago. No, 60 years ago.
Yeah. Point being, life has changed, so now things like the Amazing Digital Circus are more relevant and hitting people harder, I think, right now.
Yes, I would agree. 100%.
Yeah. Sorry, going back to the game stuff, not majorly, I promise. Okay. We're talking about how things have changed enough in storytelling so that the game now is your, like, things can be changed and stuff. I think that's once again reflected not necessarily in the short story, but how people view those kind of stories in general. Things have changed enough that we're like, well, we've gotten enough of those stories that we're kind of sick of it. We need something changed for it to be actually useful to us anymore. I read a lot of villainous manga and stuff, and I have gotten so completely bored of the genre because it is the same thing over and over and over. I read a whole essay basically on that. And I think that currently, at least for myself, I have gotten to that point of with those kind of nihilistic stories of read it over and over and over or heard it being told over and over and over that it's just gotten to the point of can we change the channel or add something else into this kind of thing, which is kind of how stories should work. There is an evolution in time kind of thing.
Yep.
So probably I would be like not interested in the story itself.
Except that
I think the reason that that's different from me liking the game or wanting to mess with the game is because the game is like, well, we're going to be nihilistic, but also we're going to try our best at being like, here's a happy ending because point and click games had to have a happy ending at the time and stuff instead of being like, I go through all of this effort. Why the fuck are you like giving me a horrible ending no matter what I do? Kind of thing. What's the point at that point? Even if the game ending could technically be considered not a good ending kind of thing, even on the good ending kind of side, which to be discussed further later.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but you're right. A lot of the horror games today have at least some ending where there's some kind of emotional arc closure.
Yeah. A lot of RPG horror games that I've played or seen people play are like, yeah, that's fucked up on most of the normal routes. But if you do one special little thing, like take this gem all the way to the ending, you get slightly better ending, and that's at least emotional closure kind of thing. There is a special thing you can do to make it so that you have a control over the game to have an influence kind of thing. I Side notes, this is talking about Deltarune, which is a game that is not finished, is currently coming out in chapters. I think the main message of that game, because it was started off as a dream, is that yes, technically you can influence the surrounding stories, but you can't actually change what the ending is going to be. That's the thing that's being said over and over at the very beginning and stuff. Your choices don't matter in this. It's one of those things of where it's saying a rebellion against the whole RPGs have to be like I have an influence to cause this ending kind of thing, like with the horror RPG horror games. I do think that it's going to be a really interesting ending. There's still the whole ability to have an evil route and a good route kind of thing, and that changes the way that the story goes so far. There's a thing of where apparently you can die in the evil route. I don't understand that much because I'm like not looking at that because game's not done. I can't look at the whole thing, and I'm just like, no, thank you, not right now, kind of thing. But that's a major difference from the supposed good route of where you go off to a festival and have a date, basically. Two different paths technically happening at the same time if you decide to go down each route, kind of thing. But supposedly, all things will end up same ending point.
It sounds like it's more of a choose your own adventure than a good router.
I wouldn't say that because choose your own adventures will lead to an eventual differing path of endings and stuff. Because you chose page 308 versus 12 kind of thing.
Right. But just like the original structure, the main body of it. Like Deltarune comes to a close, but it goes differing. Whereas most of the games that you walked me through or that I've played have had me like there is this route and there is that route and they diverge by like
because really games are hard and you don't want to do too much fucking weirdness.
Yeah.
Like sorry, my brain is thinking of a game that neither of us have played, so I probably should not use that as an example. Okay. All right, shutting up.
We should probably wrap things up because you are off on
all
the tangents about games. And guess whose turn is next? All right. So my feelings about this damn story.
Mm-hmm.
I've always liked it. When I read it originally many years ago, I was like, that is fucking shit. And that was about as far as I didn't dig into any of the references or anything. I was just like, that's crazy, damn. And I also felt very much in agreement with the central premise of it that computers were scary, people were stupid. I've grown up since then, and things are more complex. And so to me, it reflects the anger of a young straight white man towards the pressures and influences that he faced, but it doesn't have any kind of nuance to it. So to me, I'm like, it doesn't hold up very well. But I still like it. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed typing it out because I typed out the whole damn thing. I enjoyed digging it apart. I generally enjoy nihilistic fiction when it's done well. I have not burnt out on it because I don't read it all the time. I absolutely adore grimdark fantasy and all that kind of stuff, and I'm a horror writer.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I'm like, this is just great. But looking back on all the stuff by Helen I've read, I kind of go, he was just playing on people's fears and both their fears of what the future would hold and their fears of what people were like. And so I don't like it as much because it's really just some guy pushing everybody's hot buttons at the time and throwing in some um, Dante's Inferno and some references to like Norse mythology. So it's just somebody showing off his erudition and saying cheap things about people's fears.
Mm-hmm.
So Carlin could write some complicated things, but he tended not to. They tended to be really simple and focused on you can't tell me what to do. So to me, the other person who wrote a ton of short stories that holds it better is Theodore Sturgeon, who was also part of the New Wave and kind of a freak. Um, but his stories are more nuanced, and they're more about complicated things that help, I don't know, nourish the soul rather than just being like people suck. So, um, it was really nice going back to something I loved, but also I knew that it was a questionable story in my mind, and that it was not entirely based on sound sound assumptions about the world or really even sophisticated writing techniques. It was just a bunch of references thrown onto a wall to see what stuck. And it's still, to me, I'm like, the story's still brilliant, but it's not as cool as I thought it was. So, that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I am.
Got it. Would like to ask, you've written House of Masks before. I think that's your most, or from what I know, your most obviously close to political one for sci-fi stuff.
Yeah.
How would you compare that to like giving us a message kind of thing compared to like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
Similar. It's political. The basic message is humanity's kind of an infection and they suck, and it plays on people's horror or people cheap fears. It just at the end I was like, and here's the way out. Um, we shouldn't keep doing the things that we have been doing. We should do something else. And here's pointing towards somebody else. So there's hope at the end. I gave people a way out, but essentially, yeah, I'm coming from the same perspectives. Well, sort of the same perspectives that Colin Ellison is coming from. It's not that different. It's just
I know you and I like you. That's the main difference here, or whatever.
it's not me hating on people in general, and it's with the 1980s knowledge of stressed out people do stupid shit, and then try to cover it up, and then try to cover it up, and then try to cover that up, and then try to cover that up, and then try to cover that up, and actually, and yeah, this was all connected in the first place, and they just didn't want you to know because they were kind of embarrassed about it, and really, it was just awful. But yeah, it me exploring the same kind of ground.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You done? No. Okay, we should be done.
Okay.
Unless you have something about this story to talk about. All right.
No.
Thank you for joining us. We will do this again fairly soon after Ray is ready to talk about her stuff.
Thank you.
Then we'll work on Amazing Digital Circus. We'll probably take some breaks off for herpetology, though, because Homestuck is dear. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for doing this with me, even if I'm like, but look here.
We'll do more next time, I promise.
Thank you. Well then, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Yes. Thank you for putting up with my fidget toy today because I needed it.
Yes.
My emotional support too.
My emotional support, Ted.
Ew. Die, Ted, die.
Side note, I was looking at fandom stuff on Tumblr, and yeah, there were some people who were just drawing Am using Ted as a fidget toy, little squeaky thing, as his little slime blob thing. And it went, nah, gross. All right.
Okay, so I guess this was actually appropriate for this episode. Got it.
Secretly, it's all together. But yeah, I think that is what we got.
Okay. Awesome.
Goodbye.